Greetings, brothers and sisters. Hello and welcome back to Eva's House of Spirit. I'm Eva, for those of you who are newer to this channel. Welcome back also to my 13 Days of Samhain series. Today is day 6. And today's topic is going to be food and drink. I do want to apologize, though, for the very late upload of this video. Today was just a really crazy day. But I'm here. Late as I am, I'm here, as promised, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this episode. Food is a part of every celebration. I think it's just an inherently human thing to feast in observance of special occasions. As magical practitioners, there are some among us who tend to incorporate food, into, or I should say magical workings into food. Food into magical workings, or workings into food. It's kind of all the same. And this is definitely an excellent time of year for that. But regardless of whether you do much witching in the kitchen or not, this episode is going to feature a really excellent tutorial for a spice cake that I highly recommend. It's a recipe that can be used either way. You can either use it magically or you can use it mundanely. For those of you who do wish to focus on an intention while you're making a certain particular food, let's say, in order to charge that food with that intention and then serve it, to bring certain things to whoever eats the food, this spice cake, it features ingredients that could bless yourself or your company during your Samhain observances. Whether you're having a grand celebration or whether you're just having a quieter observance at home, there are things such as, the brown sugar in this recipe that I'm going to be showing you. Brown sugar is good for love and sweetness. There's also lemon peel in this spice cake for prosperity, spiritual cleansing, or perhaps love. Those of you who are familiar with Oshun know that lemons are hers. This recipe also includes cinnamon, another of Oshun's herbs. It's a great herb for fast luck, money, or even spicing up relationships. There's also orange peel in this recipe, and that's good for blessings and prosperity. Cleansing too, really, keeping energies elevated. This recipe includes allspice and nutmeg as well, which along with cinnamon are a great triad of herbs for success and overall well-being. There's anise in this recipe, which is really good at this time of year, being that the veil is so thin. A lot of us will be doing divinations. A lot of us are sort of in tune with our psychic sensitivities, our psychic centers. We're kind of putting our feelers out, seeing what the universe has to tell us, seeing what spirit has to tell us. Anise can open psychic centers, and that's an excellent herb for, that side of things at this time of year, that aspect of things. There are also cloves and ginger in this cake, both of which are excellent for protection. Basically, all around, this is just a really good recipe, an excellent food that would, I think, complement your Samhain celebrations well. And so, with that said, without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Once again, you can just make this without any sort of intention if you just want to make a nice cake, or if you do want to use this in your kitchen witchery, in order to make a food that you charge with specific intention. If you want to put energy into this for blessings and positivity and prosperity and cleansing and all manner of good things for yourself and others at this time of year, you can do that too. But hey, let's check out the video. I'm going to be sharing with you a nice tutorial for a wonderful spice cake. This, by the way, if you'd like to give this as a gift for Samhain, or for later in the season, or for Thanksgiving, or for Yule or Christmas, by the way, you could prepare all the dry ingredients for this recipe, put them in a nice jar, and then write out the recipe on a tag where you would attach that to the jar, and you can write out what wet ingredients need to be added and how long this should be baked, at what temperature, and you can actually give this as a jar gift where the recipient would only have to add the wet ingredients and then proceed to mix up and bake this wonderful spice cake. I have done that before in the past, and this cake went over very well. This is a lovely, lovely cake. So with that, we're going to get started. The first thing you want to do is you want to set your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, or whatever is the equivalent if you use a different heat scale with your oven. I know some of you may be watching from other places where you may use maybe Celsius or some other setting, gas settings or whatever. Whatever is equivalent to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, that is what you will be setting your oven to. And then in the meantime, we're going to prepare the cake batter, okay? I'm going to tell you what the ingredients are, what the measurements are for the ingredients, and then we're going to proceed to put this together. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need is 1.5 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. This recipe also calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I don't have that here, and I'm going to explain that to you why. This recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Now here's my thing, why I don't have the salt on the table. I'm going to tell you what I'm using instead of baking soda, because I didn't realize before shooting this tutorial I'm all out of baking soda. I read online that if you are out of baking soda for a baking recipe, you can use baking powder, which I have here, but the ratio, the proportion is going to be different. You need 3 times as much baking powder as whatever the measurement is for baking soda that is called for in the recipe. So in this case, this recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So therefore, I had to use 6 teaspoons of baking powder. However, the reason why I don't have salt on my table is that I also read that baking powder can make recipes somewhat salty. So it is recommended, if you're going to do what I have done and substitute baking powder in place of baking soda, do not add salt into your recipe, because this baking powder is going to take care of that for you, okay? Now the next thing we need is a 1/4 cup of molasses. This thing is pretty full, so I'm not even going to lift it off the table to show you. It's dark molasses, unsulfured molasses. Then we're going to need a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. We're also going to need a 1/4 cup of butter. In truth, I am using margarine. It's a half a stick. That's how much makes up a 1/4 cup. And I will say that this recipe calls for the butter, or in this case margarine, I find it kind of works the same, should be warmed. So I placed this in the microwave and I heated it up for like 10 seconds just to kind of get it soft. Then we're also going to need, we're also going to need 1 egg. We're going to need, in this mug I have 2/3 of a cup of milk. Sorry, I was like, did I use the right tense there for a second? We're going to use also we're going to need 1 teaspoon of grated lemon peel. This is dried grated lemon peel. I prepared this in advance. This is a teaspoon here. When I buy my lemons in the store, I try to get as much out of my lemons as I can. I have a little, like, cheese grater type of thing, like a little grater, and I will grate the peel very fine, and I will spread it on clean paper, and I will sit it on the dish, put it on top of my refrigerator for a few days until it becomes very nice and dry like this. But don't leave it up there for a really long time because it will become dusty if you leave it there for like weeks. Okay, days, all right, maybe, I'm going to say maybe 3-4 days, tops. Or you can also, by the way, when drying herbs, if you want to protect against dust, you can puncture a paper bag with many little holes or cutouts. Put your dried herbs in the bottom, curl up the top of the bag so it's sealed, and then place that on top of your refrigerator. That keeps dust from settling into your herbs. By the way, good tip. And the following thing we are going to need is a tablespoon of Holiday Spice Blend, which I had prepared in advance last year. What goes into Holiday Spice Blend is 1 tablespoon each of cinnamon powder and grated orange peel, and also 2 teaspoons each of ground allspice, of ground anise and ground coriander, and 1 teaspoon each of ground cloves, ground ginger, and ground nutmeg. And then you mix up the ingredients really well, put it in a little container for yourself, label it, and when you're making spice cake, it'll always be there for you. You can always prepare it in advance, whatever. Okay, so now that I've told you all the ingredients, before we continue, I will say I'm going to have these recipes for the spice cake and for the Holiday Spice Blend. I'm going to have these recipes for you in the description of this video. So do be sure to check that out if you want to just like copy, paste somewhere and then print it for your own, long-term keeping and use. So with that said, let's get started now. The first thing we're going to do is it says to sift the flour, salt, and baking soda together. In my case, I'm only sifting 2 things together, my flour and my baking powder, because I have made a substitution. But I'm going to put the baking powder into the flour, and with this handy-dandy little fork, I don't have a sifter, so I'm just going to kind of go through it and make sure it's well incorporated, and that any lumps are kind of messed up, broken down, messed up. Why did I say messed up? You know what I'm saying. I'm creating a sifting action using a fork because I don't actually own a flour sifter. They're nice to have, but I just, for whatever reason, I just never happened to pick one up. Okay, so I'm pretty confident that this is well sifted in. Now, once we've done that, we are directed to add the molasses and the brown sugar. So I'm going to pour the molasses in. Oh, and it's also saying to add in the warmed butter as well. Forgot to mention that. So, okay, first thing we're adding into the sifted mixture is the molasses. Making sure to get as much out of this little container as is possible. I'm just going to let that kind of sit in the bowl like upside down on the side so that it'll all drip out. Okay, and then I'm going to add in my brown sugar. This recipe says alternately that you can use honey, 1/4 cup of honey in place of brown sugar if you'd like to. I just like the idea of brown sugar. I like the way brown sugar tends to taste. And then it says to add in also the warmed butter. So we are going to cream them into the mix. I'm going to cream this all together. This may take a few minutes. Please have patience with me. Just make take some time, but you want it to be, you know, nicely incorporated. Kind of have to drag my fork along the edge because, you know, when you're working with wet and dry ingredients, sometimes they have this, I guess you could say, propensity to try to kind of clump up on the fork if you're doing what I'm doing, if you're using a fork for this. So, you know, that kind of helps to get it back in the game, so to speak. Okay. Now, the recipe is telling you to separately beat the egg, and then you're going to add the milk, the lemon, and the spice blend into this along with the egg, but I find in my experience you can just throw the egg right into here and, you know, blend it well when it's in the actual bowl. You don't need to like pre-beat it, so none of that worrisome stuff. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that I do in the kitchen when it comes to breaking open eggs and, you know, disposal without getting like drops of egg all over my counter, because I'm very particular about, you know, cleanliness with things like eggs and meat and fish and stuff. Like I don't like to kind of drip that stuff all over my kitchen because, you know, if you miss a drop and it kind of sits out, you know, you got bacteria and craziness going on. I like to take a shopping bag, and I will kind of put it on the table with the open end up, and I will sit the bowl so that the bag is kind of like ready to catch the eggshell or any drippings. And then I will crack the egg on the side of the bowl, drop the egg in, and right into the bag it goes. And there we don't have, oh, I spoke too soon, there was a little drip on the side of the bowl. But you know what? There, I've wiped that up. And then we proceed to tie up the bag, and that's ready for disposal. I'll put that on the side there until I'm ready to throw that out. Okay, so yes, the recipe, after we kind of combine in the molasses, the brown sugar, and the warmed butter, we're going to add the egg, we're going to add the milk, we're going to add the lemon, and the spice blend. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to really mix this well. You want to stir this up really well so that this is very well blended, very well incorporated, you know. You want to try to get rid of as many lumps as possible. You want this just to be a really nice smooth batter as much as possible. If you have an electric mixer, this might be a little easier to do, but I don't have an electric mixer. You know, I don't have anything with little blades that can help me to kind of blend this up nicely, so I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, but that's perfectly fine. Just make sure, again, that you try to get rid of as many lumps as is possible, because you don't want little, like, pockets of weirdness in your cake batter. It seems to be coming along rather nicely. Now, when you bake this, you know, obviously you're going to put this into a greased pan, and you're going to bake this for about 30 minutes, unless, of course, you decide to do, let's say, cupcakes. Cupcakes take about 20 minutes to bake. But you do want to be sure when you bake these to test the cake with a cake tester or a toothpick, or in desperate times I have actually used a clean paper clip that I have, you know, unfolded and used as a tester. They work equally well. You just want to make sure that when these bake, you know, when you test them after the time that is suggested, that when you put in that tester or that toothpick or that, you know, unfolded paper clip that's clean, that it comes out clean. When you stick it in and pull it out, that it comes out clean. There's no like batter stuck to it. If there's batter stuck to it, you know you need a few minutes more. But I'm sure many of you know about that. What else do I want to say about this? Yeah, so again, we're baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or equivalent for about 30 minutes. And again, if you do cupcakes, it's 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. So this is going to take me a little more time. There's still a few more lumps in this batter I have to beat out. But this is about the extent of this portion of the tutorial. You pretty much get the idea. After I have baked this up, I'll come back and I will show you the finished product. And I'm telling you, this is a really, really, really tasty spice cake. This is absolutely, I would say, I can't say it's the best cake to serve at Samhain, but this is absolutely a wonderful addition to a Samhain table. You know, be it for a Samhain get-together or even just for your family, okay? So I hope you've enjoyed this part of the tutorial thus far, and I will be back to show you the baked finished product. I just wanted to show you all something that happened, funny enough. I was, you know, putting the batter into these little Halloween-themed cupcake cups because I'm too lazy right now to grease a pan, and cupcakes are just really easy. So I discovered that the amount of batter that we made, oddly enough, is only enough to really fill 11 cupcake cups instead of 12. But that's actually kind of interesting because 11 is a master number, and 11 to me represents thresholds. You know, the leaving of one time or situation and the entering into another. And that will come up later in this 13 Days of Samhain seasonal series, but it's actually profound that numerology played a role here in my, you know, division of the batter into the cupcake cups coming to 11 rather than 12. So I would take that as a good sign. If you've noticed as well, I've filled the cupcake cups about 2/3 of the way in order to get enough batter to fill 11 cups. So, you know, and also when they bake, they won't like bake over and get all crazy. So just thought I'd share with you this interesting observation I made, that 11 played a role here in this. And with that, I'm going to continue on to bake these, and as I said before, I'm going to show you the baked cupcakes when they are done. So at last, the spice cake cupcakes are baked. This is how they came out. They're nice and soft, and I'm looking forward to eating these. They came out very nice. These can be iced and decorated if you choose to do that, or you can just leave them as they are. I don't think I'm going to be icing these personally, only because I don't have icing at the moment, and I don't mind eating spice cakes straight up. They're very nice with tea or coffee, or whenever you just feel like having a nice little piece of spice cake. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope if you try this spice cake that you come to love it as much as I do. Okay, so now that we've seen that excellent tutorial there, I think it's time for our question of the day. The question of the day that I have for you today, I invite you to go down in the comments below and let myself and others know, what food or foods do you look forward to eating or making at this time of year? Do you have any favorite things to eat or make at Samhain time? Also, if you choose to, feel free to share any recipes in the comments. Those would, I'm sure, be very welcomed by others, but I would definitely welcome those as well. I love collecting recipes. I'm very much all about cooking. Also, if you'd like to go further with your question of the day, you may, if you choose to, answer the following question. Do you use food at this time of year in witchy ways? Do you practice kitchen witchery through food preparation? I'd love to hear about that. In general, yeah, let's talk along these lines. Feel free to go down in the comments and answer this witchy question or questions of the day. And for our journaling exercise, this one is really, I think, something that is beneficial in that it's not just for this year, it's for the future too. I invite you to gather together recipes that you'd like to make for Samhain. You can gather recipes for this year, maybe paste in recipes you've cut out of magazines or that you've printed out from online, or you could write down any recipes that sound good, or even write down any recipes that you've made before, but you just want to kind of keep them together with your Samhain recipes, And the reason why I'm suggesting collecting them in your Samhain journal is that you can have them saved for this year, for when you go to prepare your food this year, or you can and you can also have them all in one place, saved for future Samhain celebrations. So, that's your journaling exercise. Gather up your recipes. Gather those Samhain recipes. I will also have for you in the Eva's House of Spirit Facebook page, not the group, the page, I'm going to have more recipes for you there. And as always, don't forget your witchy link of the day in the description below. And with that, I'm going to wish you blessed be and Ashe. You have an excellent night. Hopefully tomorrow I will be able to upload tomorrow's video at a more decent time, earlier in the day. If I can't, though, please forgive me. Yeah, so until then, you stay awesome, and bye-bye for now.